Welcome on in, everybody, to the All Aussie Rules, a football podcast. This is episode 65 of 2024 season. This is our AFLW Week 7 update. Round 6 of the AFLW has just wrapped up as of about an hour ago. And we're going to review all the games from round 6. There was 12 of them, so there was a big weekend of football in the competition. We will also be previewing all 11 games coming up this weekend in round 7 of the AFLW season. After this round, every team will have played the same amount of games at 8. So finally, the competition will be level in terms of that, which is a massive positive. So we'll jump into, I guess, the review of all the games. First up, as always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Roughly 78% of my viewers aren't subscribed. It's free if you're on YouTube, so jump on and subscribe right now. If you're on Spotify, also do the same. Still hit that follow button. I appreciate all the support. Let's jump into how the weekend started for the AFLW. Well, I say weekend. First game was on Tuesday night, as has been the case for the last few weeks. It was Geelong Fremantle at GMHBA Stadium in Geelong. And I don't know what to make of this. Geelong have had a really interesting start to the season, in all honesty. Probably not the start of the season they were looking for. They were one of the teams expected to go all right this year, but they haven't really been able to do that so far. This was their first game of the weekend. They've played 2, but after this point, where they lost by 18 points, they were 1 win, 1 draw, 4 losses through their first 6 games. So really struggling to get it going. Spoiler alert, they have played another game this week and they did win it, but certainly not the sort of season that they were hoping for. One of 2 teams that I consider being quite disappointing so far this year, the other being Melbourne. Meanwhile, Fremantle, they're looking all right. Let's be honest. At this point, they have played another game since this one, just like Geelong, but they were 5-1 after this game against Geelong. They then have lost to Hawthorn, but yeah, they've certainly had a much better start to the season than Geelong has, which is a little surprising. I don't think too many people were expecting Geelong to struggle this much, and probably, I don't know if Fremantle were that favoured to do that well this year, but they certainly are playing some good football at the moment. We'll have a look at this match. Geelong got out in front in the first half. They were up a couple goals halfway through the second quarter. Fremantle fought their way back just before half time and then kicked away in the second half to win by 18 points. Pretty comfortable win in the end, in all honesty. It was a game that I don't think either team really dominated it, but Fremantle certainly took their opportunities in the end, and that was a major factor in the result of this match. I look at some of the best players in this one. We start with multiple goal scorers. As always, just the one in this one, Gabby O'Sullivan for Fremantle, kicked 2 in what was an outstanding game. She also had 19 disposals, 4 tackles, 4 clearances, and 372 metres gained. So a really good performance from her. Also from Fremantle, plenty of other good players. Hayley Miller, 24 touches and a goal. Really good performance. The ruckman for Fremantle, Mim Strom, had 42 hitouts to go, 14 touches and 7 tackles. McCarthy, also for Freo, 28 touches and a goal, 6 tackles, 7 clearances. So they had some really good players. As I said, Gabby O'Sullivan was really good. On the other side of the fence, the Geelong side, their best players, Rebecca Webster, 25 touches, 2 clearances, solid performance. Played 100% game time as well. Nina Morrison, 13 disposals and 13 tackles. It's a really good return. Outside of that, Friswell kicked a goal from 16 touches. Bowen had 20 touches. And yeah, that's about the extent of it. In the end, poor kicking on both sides of the fence. Geelong 3-9, Fremantle 6-9. So both teams let themselves down in kicking in front of goal. But in the end, Fremantle get the chocolates. And you have to think that they're going to be quite competitive through the second half of this season. Jumping into game number 2, it was on Wednesday night. There was 2 games on Wednesday this week. First one was Hawthorn Gold Coast. And what a season Hawthorn are putting together. They win this one 35-22. They have since won another game, so they're currently 6-1 after 7 matches. With a pretty high percentage, they're certainly going to be a team that's pushing towards that top 4 now, you'd have to think, come the end of the season. Gold Coast kicked the first, but after that it was all one-way traffic. They led by 19 points at half-time. Gold Coast did get their way back into it late in the third, but Hawthorn kicked the only goal of the last quarter just to seal the game. They end up kicking 4 goals 11, 35-3, 4-22 for Gold Coast. It's a game that I guess there wasn't a huge amount of inside 50s. The play was really stuck in that middle of the ground for long periods, just bouncing back and forward a bit. But Hawthorn dominated possession, dominated most of the game. It's hard to make an argument that Gold Coast were the better team in this one. In the end, Hawthorn just kind of wasted their opportunities, kicking 4 goals 11, which kept the Suns in it a fair bit of the way through this one. Multiple goal scorer, there was only one. Jacqueline Dupai for Gold Coast, kicked 2. Best players, as always, we'll start with Hawthorn. They were the winning team. Eliza West, 23 touches, 9 tackles and a goal. 8 clearances as well, really good performance. Ruck woman for Hawthorn, Lucy Wales, continued her good work as a ruckman. 10 touches, 25 hit-outs. Granted, both ruckmen did pretty well in this game. Greta Bodie, 18 touches. I don't know. There weren't too many other massive ball winners or standouts. Meanwhile, for Gold Coast, their best player stood up again, Charlie Rowbottom. She had 30 touches, 12 tackles, 10 clearances, which is an outstanding stat line. Probably most weeks is probably the best stat line of the week, but spoiler alert, when we get to the Adelaide game later on in the weekend, there was a stat line that probably blows that one out of the water. Lucy Single, 17 touches, a goal with 12 tackles as well, was really good. As I said, Lauren Bella, the ruck woman for Gold Coast, did really well. 9 touches, 28 hit-outs with 8 tackles. Daisy Darcy, 23 touches as well. And as I said, Jacqueline Dupai, 9 touches, 2 goals as well. So that was Gold Coast. Just probably a little bit off the top level at the moment, in all honesty. They're not getting thrashed by too many teams. They're staying competitive most weeks. They just lack that final touch, I think. You look at it, they've been flogged twice, once by St Kilda in round 1 and then by Geelong in round 4. But outside that, they've been really competitive. They drew with GWS. They lost by a point to Carlton, lost by 3 points to Collingwood, and now they've lost by 13 points to Hawthorn, and then later in the week they lost by 9 points to Essendon. So even though they've only got half a win from 7 games, it's not all doom and gloom for them. I don't think they're the worst team in the competition right now. They're certainly not the best, but I think they're probably around that 15 to 16th best team in the competition right now, which isn't great, but it's not all doom and gloom for them. We'll jump into the next game. It was the Bombers Sydney, also on Wednesday night, not Saturday night. I've lost the plot there. Essendon kicked 4-3-27 to win it, 3-6-24 by 3 points. Game that went down to the wire after Essendon kind of led all the way through this one. They let themselves down a little bit towards the end. They were 18 points up at three-quarter time. 2 goals for Sydney in that last quarter got them back into it, but in the end, Essendon just held on for that last maybe 5-6 minutes when Sydney were within a kick. There was a rush behind in that time, but in the end, Bombers take the points. Disposals were pretty similar. Inside 50s, very similar in the end. Nothing stands out too much in this game. It was probably a 3-point margin seems about right when you look at the stats and how the game was played. Sydney probably wasted a few opportunities, but in the end, Essendon maybe deserved winners for what they did in the first 2.5 quarters. Let themselves down a little bit at the end, but still pretty good performance. Only multiple goal scorer in this was Elise Gamble for the Bombers. She kicked 2 goals from her 5 disposals. Best players, as always, the Bombers first. Brooke Walker, 23 touches, 11 tackles, was really good. Stephanie Wales in the ruck did really well with 12 touches, 33 hit-outs, 3 clearances. Nanskewen, 22 touches, and then plenty of other people that contributed to the game but not standout performers. Meanwhile, for Sydney, Lucy Gardner had 35 disposals, 4 tackles, 7 clearances and 543 metres gained, which is a massive amount of metres gained, but was trumped by Sophia Hurley, who had 28 disposals, 553 metres gained and 8 clearances. So they had some big ball winners, some big ball movers in the Sydney team. They just couldn't convert it to scores. Tanya Kennedy also had 21 touches, 11 tackles, was really good. But in the end, they fell short of the Bombers in this one. Next up, we have Melbourne GWS. This was Thursday night football. Melbourne, who had certainly been underperforming, needed a win here. GWS probably slightly above Gold Coast in my reasoning of positions on ladder, but only just. A team that hasn't had a great amount of success so far this year. Not the worst team in the comp, but certainly maybe a little bit off the best. They've played 6 games now. They've only got a win and a draw from that. Their first round, they won round 1 by 63 points. Since then, it hasn't been great. They lost to Richmond by 11. They drew with Gold Coast. Then they lost to Sydney by 3, West Coast by 24, and Melbourne by 16 in this one. So their season's getting away from them. I certainly don't see them winning more than maybe one game this year for the rest of the year. Melbourne kicked away, they were 4-3 to 0-5 at halftime. Second half, not a huge amount happened. GWS did win the second half. They kicked 3-2 to Melbourne's 2-2. So they came back by a goal in the second half, but the damage was well and truly done through poor kicking in that first half. They could have been competitive. They kicked 3 goals, 7. They probably shouldn't have lost by 16 points in this one, in all honesty. In fact, when you look at the total shots, both teams had 13 for the match. GWS actually dominated the inside 50s here. No, they didn't. They lost inside 50s, 28-40, but they did have the same amount of shots. So they defended pretty well, created opportunities, but just didn't take those opportunities. But the game was pretty much done by half-time just because of poor kicking in the end. A look at some of the best players in this one. 2 multiple goal scorers. For Melbourne, Alyssa Bannon kicked 2, and for GWS, Brodie Mowbray kicked 2 as well. We'll jump into best players. For Melbourne, Kate Hoare dominated, 27 touches, 12 clearances, was huge performance from her. Tyler Hanks was good with 19 touches, 8 tackles, 7 clearances. A lot of clearances in this game. Outside of that, everyone kind of played their role without dominating. For GWS, Goldsworthy, 17 touches and a goal with 8 tackles, was really good. Rebecca Beeson, 28 touches, huge game from her. And then, once again, plenty of role players. Elise Parker had 29 touches as well as 8 clearances, so also worth mentioning there. But yeah, I don't know. Melbourne haven't had the best season. they've let themselves down. They were one of the fancies in the competition, so the fact that they're sitting at 2 wins, 4 losses makes it hard for them to make finals from here. But if they get on a run, you never know. They still have 5 games left, so they play 2 this weekend coming up. All of a sudden, if they knock both those over, they're not going to be easy games, let me tell you. But if they do, they do get themselves in with a little chance. You can probably make finals with potentially 6 wins, potentially, but you might need 7 to make finals, depending on how the season rolls out. So if it's 6, they can afford 1 more loss, but that would be absolute maximum. And at the moment, their percentage is horrible, so they need to get some big wins to get their percentage back going in the right direction. We'll jump into Friday football first, Friday night football. This was Adelaide St Kilda. Adelaide kicked 3-8-26 to win it to 3-4-22. Close game, closer than perhaps it could have been. Adelaide wasted plenty of opportunities in this one. They certainly dominated around the ground in this most of the way. Extra 30 disposals in it. They had an extra 8 shots than St Kilda. Had an extra 14 inside 50s. They dominated contested ball, uncontested ball. They just kind of dominated the game, but didn't dominate the scoreboard due to poor kicking and just an inability to convert and really put the pedal down, I guess. St Kilda kicked the first one in this. Adelaide then got out and led most of the way home. Hannah Stewart for St Kilda kicked a goal to get them within a couple points late in the 4th quarter before Adelaide got 3 behinds to close out the game and end up winning by 4 points. Just a tale of many wasted opportunities for the Crows. Multiple goal scorers, there were none in this one. However, best players in one of the games of the season by an individual. She's had an outstanding year all round. Ebony Marinoff. She's going to be very close to league best and fairest at the moment. She'll be high up in that voting for sure. She had 31 touches, 1 behind unfortunately, didn't convert, but 17 tackles, 9 clearances, 350 metres gained in a massive performance. Madison Newman, 17 touches, 11 tackles. Anne Hatchard always is amongst the ball as well, 24 touches, 5 clearances, not 5 tackles. Meanwhile, for St Kilda, Tiana Smith, 22 touches, 13 tackles, 10 clearances. And Grace Kelly had 21 touches, was good. Molly McDonald, 14 touches and a goal. Overall, it was a pretty solid performance by St Kilda, but to stay in it as close as they did. But Adelaide certainly wasted plenty of opportunities in this one. Next up, we go to Saturday football. It was Kangaroos Bulldogs. Kangaroos heavy favourites as one of the better teams in the competition. Bulldogs certainly not there. They have shown some better form over recent weeks, but they're still a fair way off these top teams. So they lost their first 4 quite convincingly before they smacked Collingwood and then beat Sydney last week to make their season look okay, but they went back to getting smacked this week. But it was against arguably the best team in the competition in the Kangaroos. It was never in doubt, really. 2-0 in the first quarter. It was 24-4 at half time. It was 44-4 at 3-quarter time, and just continued on to 59-4 at the finish. 8 goals, 11, so wasted some opportunities, did the Roos. They dominated this game, had an extra 70 disposals than the Bulldogs, extra 14 inside 50s. 3 extra clearances, a lot more uncontested, a lot of contested. 48 turnovers to 60 suggests that they looked after the ball a lot better as well. See that they had a lot more of the ball. You would kind of forgive them if they did turn it over a bit, but the Kangaroos just really looked after the ball very well in this game. and made use of their opportunities. 3 multiple goal scorers, obviously all for the Kangaroos. Martin kicked 2, Emma King kicked 2, and Jasmine Garner also kicked 2. Best players on the ground. It was just shared around, to be honest. The whole Kangaroos team was very, very good in this one. Jasmine Garner, 20 touches, 2 goals, 5 tackles. Ash Riddell, 26 touches and a goal, was also great. But in all honesty, you could pretty much say any Kangaroos player, and they played really well. Bulldogs, no one really got much of the football throughout this match. Pritchard had their most with 18 touches, so not a massive ball-winning effort from anyone on the Bulldogs team. They were outclassed. There's no doubt about it. It's one of the top teams going up against one of the lower-ranked teams, and it was just never really in doubt, this result. Next up, we have Richmond Collingwood. This was a funny old game. She was pouring down with rain most of the way through. There was thunderstorms, so they had delays for that, where they had to wait for a little bit. But in the end, the Tigers just decimated Collingwood, really. 7-4-46 to 1-4-10. Richmond really starting to look like they are going to be playing finals for sure. They've got 5 wins, 2 losses now, which, with 4 games to go, they probably 2 more wins guarantees them finals. 1 win would almost do that, so they're cruising along at the moment. Potentially could be a top 4 team. At the moment, you'd think that them and Hawthorn will possibly be fighting for that final spot in the top 4, with the top 3 spots probably going to the Kangaroos, the Lions and the Crows. It could well be Hawthorn, Richmond fighting for that 4th spot, but don't rule out Fremantle as well. They're still in with a chance as well in that little fight. So yeah, it's going to go right to the end, you'd think, between them. First half, halfway through the second quarter, it was still within a goal, but in the end, Richmond just blew them away. Dominated inside 50s, 41-19. Just never really looked like losing at any point of this, did the Tigers. They dominated most facets of the game, and got the 4 points, which is what they needed from this one. 3 multiple goal scorers, obviously all Richmond players, as Collingwood only kicked 1 goal for the team. Lee Sharon got 2, Ellie McKenzie got 2, and Tamara Luke also got 2 goals. Best players, no surprise here. Mon Conti, again, another 30 disposals, 7 tackles, 7 clearances. Potentially another 3-vote game. Could be 2 in a row, maybe. They did lose last week, but she's going to be in the votes in the best and fairest for the competition as well, you'd think. There's a few people starting to stand out, and her and Ebony Marinoff are 2 of them. Rowbottom for Gold Coast is another, but Gold Coast just aren't winning enough games, so that might really hurt her chances, but we'll see. Kate Dempsey, 23 touches, was really good. As we said, Ellie McKenzie had 18 touches, 2 goals, and Elise Sharon had 17 touches, 2 goals. Really good performances. Best players for Collingwood, Britt Benici was really, really good in a losing effort. 23 touches, 11 tackles, 5 clearances. Sarah Rowe just ran all day, 28 touches, was good, and Bree Davey had 17 touches. But overall, they were just not outclassed across the ground. The midfield kind of was a pretty even battle, but it's just a matter of that forward line for Collingwood being not quite up to the standards of other teams, and also their back line getting beaten quite comprehensively. Next up was Saturday evening game, West Coast Port Adelaide. West Coast season had been looking pretty good and was looking really good here. They were 3-1, 19-0-0 at quarter time. And all of a sudden it was looking really good for the Eagles in a game that would have put them to 5-2 and a really good chance to lock up a final spot. But Port Adelaide came back, and they came back quickly. They took the lead on half-time with a goal from Ashley Saint, and then kicked the first 2 of second half straight away. Ended up winning it by 13 points. After quarter time, it was basically one-way traffic. A look at some of the stats in this one. Port Adelaide dominated it. Didn't dominate possession, but certainly dominated the territory battle. Plus 11 inside 50s. Plus 4 clearances. They just used the ball a lot better, whereas West Coast had a lot of the football, but just didn't damage, really. Weren't damaging with it at all. 3 multiple goal scorers, all Port Adelaide players. Caitlin Wendland, Justine Mills-Robinson and Gemma Howson all kicked 2 goals apiece. Best players, firstly, for Port Adelaide, Scholes, 15 touches, 23 hit-outs was good as their ruckman. Abby Dorick, 19 touches, 8 clearances. Caitlin Wendland, 11 touches, 2 goals. Gemma Howson, 9 touches, 2 goals. And a bunch of role players that all did their role. Meanwhile, for West Coast, they had a couple really good performances. One from Ella Robertson, 27 touches and a goal. And then Isabella Lewis also played really well with 26 touches and a goal. And Charlotte Thomas was also quite good with 24 touches. So they're big name players, all did well, but in the end, Port Adelaide were just too strong. Which now keeps Port Adelaide in the hunt. They were, after the first week, I did say they were a potential improver this year as a team that might push towards the 8, and they sit 9th on the ladder at the moment. Obviously having played an extra game than St Kilda, who are right below them. But their percentage is pretty good. They have Collingwood this week, so you'd have to put them in as a very good chance to get a win this week. So all of a sudden, they could be a team that is fighting for finals. If they're 4-4 with 3 games to go, fate will be in their hands. Next up was Saturday night football, and this was another flogging. Carlton, Brisbane. Brisbane 9 goals 14 to 1 goal 7 for Carlton. So both teams kicked really poorly in front of goal. For the first quarter and a half, it was pretty closely contested, but Brisbane kind of just kicked away in the end, or from early-ish in the second quarter, just dominated the play. They had only 7 extra inside 50s in this one, only 6 extra clearances, but they looked the better team throughout, really. They had an extra 7 shots, so pretty much every extra inside 50 equaled an extra shot in this one for Brisbane. Overall, just certainly the better oiled and better seasoned team, Brisbane, obviously winning the premiership last year. Only 1 multiple goal scorer in this one. It was Ellie Hampson. She kicked 2. Best players, firstly for Brisbane, Charlotte Mullins, 23 touches and a goal. Ali Anderson, 19 touches, was good. Sophie Conway, as always, was really good, running up and down the ground, 16 touches and a goal. They just shared it around. They played really well. Really good football throughout, really. For Carlton, Shara had 27 touches, 2 behind, so could have had an outstanding game. Madeline Gurin, 16 touches, was solid. But overall, it was pretty much one-way traffic in favour of the Lions in this one. So they really set themselves up. They're second on the ladder, only half a game but behind the top of the ladder Kangaroos. With 4 games to go, I've got Gold Coast this week, so I won't say it's a guaranteed win, but it is the bottom of the ladder, Gold Coast Suns. So they can really set themselves up for a top 4 spot this week and really push towards getting that home final in week 1 of the finals. Next up, we go to Sunday football. These are the teams that played 2 games this weekend. First up, Gold Coast, Essendon. Sunday afternoon, it was 4-3-27 for the Suns to 5-6-36 for the Dons. I won't say comfortable win. It was only 9 points. And up until early in the second half, early in the third, it was only a point in it. The Bombers then kicked 3 goals going into three-quarter time to give them that little bit of a break of 19 points. Gold Coast did kick 2 by halfway through that last quarter just to give themselves a sniff, but in the end the Bombers kicked a couple points through Daria Bannister late, but they were the only 2 chances really at goal for either team in that last 10 to 12 minutes of the game. A look at the stats. I don't think it was a bad performance from the Suns. They stuck in there pretty well, but Bombers were certainly the better team. There's no doubt about it. They had 44 to 26 inside 50s, the Dons. They had an extra 40 disposals. They controlled most of the play. They controlled most of the ground territory. They certainly controlled the uncontested football throughout the game. It was a very low tackle game compared to certainly most AFLW games. It was only 53 tackles for the Suns, which is pretty low, and 37 for the Bombers, which is very, very low. But in the end, the Bombers were just too good, which you kind of expect. I mean, they're middle of the table, potentially going to be pushing towards finals, whereas Gold Coast currently sit bottom of the ladder, and without too much hope of progressing too far. Multiple goal scorers. There was 2 for the Bombers. Madison Prespakis. I get that name wrong every time. I'm not going to even try again. We know who I'm talking about. She had 22 touches and 2 goals with 9 clearances. Was outstanding in a best on ground performance. Amber Clark also kicked 2. Meanwhile, for the Suns, Jacqueline Dupai kicked 2. Best players, and we've already said who was top. Nancy Owen was also good with 28 touches. Daria Bannister, 14 touches, 3 behinds, so could have had a really good game. For the Suns, Lucy Single was probably their best. 22 touches, 8 tackles, 6 clearances, 450 metres gained. Charlie Rowbottom probably misses best and fairest votes in this one. League best and fairest votes, that is. 22 touches, 9 clearances, still a really good game, but just maybe not quite as good as the first game she played on the weekend. So that has the Suns still sitting last, and it puts the Bombers up to 7th on the ladder and a really good chance to push for finals. I wasn't meant to do that yet. We've still got 2 more games. Next up, Sydney v Geelong. Sydney kicked 6-5-41 to a very inaccurate 5-14-44 for the Cats. But the Cats just get over the line. They looked in control early. They kicked the only 3 goals in the first quarter. Sydney brought it right back by half-time to only be 7 points down, having both teams kicked 3 goals. Geelong kicked a 0-7 in the second quarter. Geelong got it out to a couple goal margin early in the last, or 3 goal margin actually. Sydney kicked the last 3 of the game through. We've still 10 minutes to go. They were within a kick. Geelong held on though to get the win. A look at some of the stats in this one. Geelong dominated possession, extra 6 inside 50s. Clearance game, midfield game was pretty tight, but the contested footy was dominated by Geelong in this one. And that's probably what got them over the line. They were very good at winning the ball in tight. No doubt about that. A look at some of the best players in this one. There was 2 multiple goal scorers. Firstly, Geelong, Aisling Maloney kicked 2 goals too, so could have had a day out. And for Sydney, Paris McCarthy kicked 3 goals from 12 disposals. Best players, Geelong, they were the winners. It was just a well-rounded performance, really. Crockett Grills had 17 touches and a goal. Parry, 14 touches and a goal. Ruckwoman for Geelong, Kate Darby, 21 hit-outs from 13 disposals, 3 tackles, 3 clearances. For the Swans, Sophia Hurley, was really good. 20 touches, 9 tackles. Laura Gardner had 30 disposals. they won plenty of the ball. They just maybe weren't always as effective as could be. One final game of the round, just wrapped up an hour before I started filming, was Fremantle Hawthorn. It was over in the West, and the Hawks got it done. 5-4-34 to Fremantle's 3-7-25. Hawthorn pretty much led the whole way. At no point of this game did Fremantle lead. And yeah, they looked like they were going to give it a shake late. Fremantle, they kicked the first goal of the last quarter to get within a kick, but then Jess Burek for the Hawks kicked a goal with about 6 minutes to go, which kind of sealed it. Freo did have a couple shots late and missed them both, but in the end, the Hawks get the win. Look at some of the stats in this one. It's a pretty even game. Fremantle dominated the inside 50s, 29-23. Disposals were very similar for both teams. Hawthorn did well in the clearance game. But in the end, Hawthorn made use of their chances and Fremantle didn't. And that is 100% the difference in this game. Without a doubt, was just that the difference in the conversion. Fremantle had 11 shots to Hawthorn's 9, so plus 2 shots, and they lost it by 9 points. So a disappointing end to the round for Fremantle in what could have been a really positive weekend for them. Meanwhile, in the reverse, it is a really positive weekend for Hawthorn. They're sitting 3rd or 4th on the ladder. Obviously, Adelaide are below them, and have played one less game. But they're certainly looking like a team that's going to be well and truly in the finals, but maybe even a top 4 spot, which would be an outstanding result for them. No multiple goal scorers in this game, a lot of single goal scorers, obviously. Lucy Wales for Hawthorn played her second really good game in the ruck this weekend. 43 hitouts, 10 tackles. Eliza West, 19 touches and a goal. Jasmine Fleming, 17 touches and a goal. Plenty of other ball winners around for the Hawks. For the Dockers, McCarthy, 24 touches, 9 tackles, 5 clearances. Was really good. Plenty of other contributors. Mim Strong, there was a lot of ruck work in this game. She had 38 hitouts against Lucy Wales' 43. So a pretty even battle between those two. In the end, Hawthorn took their chances and get the win. Now have a look at how my tips went this weekend, and overall, they went pretty well. We started off with a loss. We went Geelong over Fremantle just because it was in Melbourne. Got that one wrong. We then went on a good little run here. We got Hawthorn, we got Essendon, we got Melbourne, Adelaide, North Melbourne and Richmond. I don't think any of them are too big of surprises. Probably just about the favourites in all of them. We got West Coast wrong. They looked good early, but Port Adelaide ran over the top. We then got Brisbane, Essendon and Geelong right before. We got Fremantle wrong in that last game. We got 9 of 12 for the round, so pretty solid round in all honesty. We're 41 of 61 for the year, so slightly improved. Pretty solid weekend all around when you look at it. At the end of the day, we'll now have a look at the ladder. I don't have the graphic to put on the screen, but we'll just quickly run through the ladder after round 6. Noted that some teams have only played 6 games. There's still 4 teams that are a game behind. So that Adelaide in 5th spot, St Kilda in 10th spot, Melbourne in 13th, and GWS in 16th. But Kangaroos, they lead the competition, 6 wins and a draw through 7 games. They're going to be top 2, you'd have to think. It's hard to see them not finishing top 2 from here. Brisbane are playing some really great football. You take out round 1 where they lost to North Melbourne. They've been really solid the rest of the year. They're 6 wins and a loss. They're going to be fighting for that top 2 spot. Hawthorn, as I said, they're going along great guns. They're 6 wins and a loss as well. And have won their last 4. They've got West Coast this weekend coming up. So they've got a real chance to really, well, a win this weekend would seal a final spot. But certainly would put them towards very much so playing top 4. Playing top 4, getting top 4. Richmond are 4th on the ladder. They're 5 wins, 2 losses. They've got Geelong this weekend in a massive matchup. They win that one. They pretty much look good for finals. And pretty much effectively almost can knock Geelong out of the finals. Not officially, but certainly will hurt Geelong's chances. Adelaide, they're 5 wins and a loss. They've got 2 games coming up this weekend. One of them against Melbourne to start the weekend is a huge, huge game. And in all honesty, could make or break either team's season. Well, not their season. It will, if they win this one, they will knock Melbourne out of the finals. Whereas if they win it, they can go, if they win it, they will also really be pushing towards that top 4. But if they lose, all of a sudden top 4 is going to be quite tough for them, even though they've had a spectacular start to the year. Fremantle, they're 5 wins, 2 losses. Obviously just lost on the weekend. They've got Carlton coming up this weekend. They're still 6th on the ladder. A really good chance to really push towards finals. And still technically quite comfortably a chance to play top 4 football. So we'll see how their season ends up. It's not going to be easy. They're a game behind Hawthorn, but it's certainly not out of the realms of possibility. Essendon, they're 4 wins, 3 losses. They've won their last 3. They play the Bulldogs this weekend, so they'll be going into that favourites. All of a sudden, their chances of finals is looking really, really good. When they were 1 and 3, people were pretty much writing them off, probably myself included, but they have certainly turned their season around. West Coast, disappointing loss on the weekend, puts them back in that middle range. They're still 8th on the ladder. They're 4 wins, 3 losses. Their percentage is quite average. So they're going to have to keep winning games, and they play Hawthorn this week, so they've got their work cut out for them. Port Adelaide are 3 and 4. They've got Collingwood this weekend. Chance to go 3 wins in a row. Big chance for them. St Kilda, they have 2 games coming up this weekend. If they can get both of them, if they can win them both, they really put themselves potentially in the top 4 by the end of the round. Geelong, they need a win against Richmond. They're 2 wins, 4 losses and a draw. Sydney, they're 2 wins, 5 losses. Their season's probably almost gone. They play at top of the ladder North Melbourne this weekend, so a loss here would finish their season. Melbourne, they play 2 games this weekend. They certainly can't afford to lose them both. They have to win at least one, but they pretty much need to win out the season, in all honesty. Bulldogs, they're 2 wins, 5 losses. I think they've done better than most people expected them to, certainly after the first couple games. Carlton, their season's struggling. They're 2 wins, 5 losses. They've lost their last 4. GWS have 2 games this weekend, a win and a draw so far this year. They need to get something going. They've got 2 tough games this weekend, so it might be tough for them. Collingwood, their season's gone. They just aren't really that competitive. They'll win 6 losses, and Gold Coast are bottom of the ladder, 0 wins, 6 losses, and a draw, and play Brisbane this weekend, so it's not going to get easier for them. Let's have a look forward towards this week. We'll start on Tuesday, as we have been regularly lately. St Kilda GWS to start the week. A game that St Kilda should win, you'd think, based on what we've seen this year. GWS just look a little bit below the rest, whereas St Kilda are well and truly in that mid-range team. They started their season with 3 losses. Since then, they've lost their last 3, but I expect to see them bounce back in this one. Wednesday night, we've got Adelaide-Melbourne, big game for both teams, as we discussed. Adelaide should go into this pretty comfortable favourites. Their form isn't spectacular, the Crows, but I certainly see them as one of the top 4 teams, probably the top 3 teams. So I think they should get it done, even though Melbourne did show a little sign of life last weekend. Thursday night football is Port Adelaide-Collingwood, a real big chance for Port Adelaide to push forwards towards finals. They have to win this if they want to play finals. Then Friday night, we've got Bulldogs, Essendon. Essendon should be too strong for this and for the Dogs here and really push towards finals. Saturday football, we got Hawthorn versus West Coast. Big game for both teams. If West Coast lose this, their finals chances take a real big blow. It's going to be a tough one for them because Hawthorn are playing some really good football. They've won their last 4. They're looking very strong. Richmond-Geelong is a fascinating game. Geelong, at times, have shown that they're quite a good team. Richmond have been pretty consistent throughout the year. They've only lost 2 games and only lost 1 in the last 5, and that was to the Kangaroos down at a rainy Utah Stadium. So, it should be a cracking game, in all honesty. I think Richmond probably go in favourites, but it should be a good game. Saturday evening, we got Brisbane hosting Gold Coast. That should be one-way traffic. You'd imagine Brisbane should be far too strong. Saturday night game, Fremantle-Carlton. You'd have to think Fremantle will go in as massive favourites in this and should be too strong for the Blues. To really set up Fremantle's finals chances, we're starting to see some teams break away from the pack here. Sunday football, North Melbourne should be too strong for Sydney based on what we've seen over the last month or so. That's down at North Hobart Oval. And then also on Sunday, we got St Kilda Melbourne. A fascinating game, that one. Depending on how the previous game goes this weekend, it could be a chance for St Kilda to push into the top 8 if they get both wins. Meanwhile, if they lose both, their season's effectively over. Meanwhile, for Melbourne, if they do win both, their chances of finals are still alive, but it's going to be tough. Final game of the round is GWS Adelaide. You'd have to think Adelaide would be too strong in this one to really push themselves back into that top 4. They're only out of the top 4 at the moment due to playing less games than Richmond and all the teams above them. If they win both games this weekend, they effectively could be second on the ladder. Probably third on the ladder based on percentages. But, their season's cruising along. We basically just went through my tips, but we'll just quickly show them here. St Kilda to be too strong for GWS. Adelaide too good for Melbourne. Port Adelaide should smack Collingwood. Essendon should be too good for the Doggies. Hawthorn too good for the Eagles. Richmond in a tight one against Geelong. Brisbane too good for Gold Coast. Fremantle should take care of Carlton. North Melbourne will be far too strong for Sydney. Melbourne to potentially keep their season alive, beating St Kilda. And Adelaide to round out the round against GWS with a win. That's everything AFLW Week 7. It's been quite a lot of content. There was 12 games last weekend. There's another 11 coming up this weekend. I'm starting to put together some in-depth stats of the AFLW season, so expect them to be melded into the podcast going forward. I thank you all for listening. Don't forget, whether you're on YouTube or Spotify, to like, comment and subscribe. I appreciate you all. Let me know what you think of the AFLW season. As always, there's 2 podcasts every week. One on the AFLW coming out on Mondays, and one on the men's competition coming out on Friday. So the next episode 66 will be AFL men's, which will come out on Friday. It's going to be looking at everything free agency. It's going to be looking at everything in the start of trade week. It's going to be looking at everything that's going on in the AFL men's world. We might also slightly look at AFLW as well. I'm also going to be checking out top 10 players from every position in the AFL men's competition in that episode. So check that out. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to check out the social medias. It's at All Aussie Rules everywhere. Thanks again, and catch you on the next one.